Now, good evening, everybody. It's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to thank everybody for joining us from wherever you are on in the planet. And we've got Eric Reed with us this evening. Now, Eric is one of the most respected EC Council instructors in North America. In fact, correction, one of the the most respected IT trainers in North America. So we're very lucky to have Eric with us. Now, Eric has very kindly agreed to give us a demonstration of the kind of content that is taught in the Certified Ethical Hacker course. So, Eric, if you can, just give us a quick intro to yourself, and then jump into how to sniff a switched network in 15 minutes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Max. Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Reed. I've been an EC Council Master Instructor for the last 5 years, since Master Instructor was actually a coined term. I've been teaching the course for 7 years, and I've delivered the course about 85, 90 times at this point. I did get to the Instructor of the Year this last year at Miami for Hacker Help for North America, so I do the course a lot. And I want to give you an overview of sniffing a switch network using arc poisoning, and I'm going to show you a free tool that we use to do that. And it's going to give you an idea of what the delivery of Ethical Hacker is all about. We're picking one module, and that one module is Module 7, dealing with sniffers. It's one of my favorite things to do because it still works really well. It has been working for the last 7 years that I've been teaching the course. We're just now really starting to see countermeasures that detect and block this sort of attack. So we're going to be talking about the ARP protocol. We're going to sort of lay a foundation, talk about what the weakness is in the ARP protocol, how it's supposed to work under normal circumstances, and how we can manipulate that to actually intercept packets even on a switch network, which we shouldn't be able to do. So I'm going to actually switch to screen share at this point, and I'm going to bringing up the slides. We're going to go through a couple of the slides that are delivered live in the course, and then we're going to talk about what the problem with the protocol is. I'm going to do a little whiteboard work here to sort of draw things out nice and simplistically, and we're actually going to run the attack. I'm going to show you the website to pull the tool down. It's an oldie but a goodie. It is called Cane. It is the proverbial Swiss Army knife of sniffing tools. We're actually going to take it a step further. We're going to intercept some passwords and take a look at some other possibilities inside the Cane utility as well. So I hope you enjoyed this quick 15-minute demo. It is this simple in a lot of networks. Getting Cane installed on the machine, AV might freak out about it a little bit because it is a hacking tool. But most networks are vulnerable to these sorts of attacks. So this shows a relative level of simplicity for getting this done. If somebody's able to get a computer plugged into your network, fire up a simplistic tool, and even the scans that Cane does to assess what nodes are live on the network tend to be a little bit on the stealthy side as well. So I'm going to hop over to screen share here and bring up the slide presentation, and we're going to kick into the whiteboard, we're going to kick into the tool, and then we'll wrap it up with some countermeasuring and talk a little bit about what we can do to stop this sort of thing and detect it, and then we'll field some questions about the course. So popping over to screen share, and we're going to start off with just go full screen on this. All right, a little corridor effect there. So this is actually about a third of the way into the module here, dealing with ARP poisoning attacks. So I'm going to whiteboard this out here, but address resolution protocol is what we use for the final resolution for mapping an IP address to a hardware address, and that's actually how the packets themselves get delivered, by hardware address. So the IP address just helps us find the network that the destination node resides upon, and then helps us find the actual MAC address for that node, and allows us to build our frames correctly, address it for the right node, and then the switch does its job and routes that. Now, one of the weaknesses in address resolution protocol is typically it's a request and a response. It's a little known fact there, to do a little quick Clavin for you there, a little known fact that you can actually send an unsolicited ARP response. And that unsolicited ARP response will be cached by the client that you send it to. They didn't ask, but okay, thanks, so accept it. And then you've got 2 minutes to misaddress packets. And as long as we keep poisoning that ARP cache at more frequent intervals than the cache timeout, you'll be able to continuously sniff the network. So I'm just going to sort of draw this out a little bit for you here. I do a lot of whiteboard work in the course. So I'm firing up Zoom it here, and let's just take a look at what the standard network switch is going to look like. Let's just say there's only got 2 ports on. All right, let's say that one of those ports is connected to the router. All right, and let's say that the network address is 192.168.0.0/24. All right, let's say that this guy is .1, 192.168.0.1, And his MAC address, just for simplicity's sake, this is a 48-bit number represented in a bunch of hexadecimal here, so I'm not going to make this tedious for you and draw all this stuff out. I'm just going to say he is MAC 1. That's M1. All right, our attacker, sitting on another switch, our port on the switch. Let's say that he is, making it nice and evil here, Lego guy, evil hacker. And let's say he's .2, and let's say that his MAC address is MAC 2. All right, then our victim system, let's say that could be server, that could be client, whatever the case may be. Put a little unhappy face on this guy, he's about to be compromised. And let's say that he is .3, and his MAC address is MAC 3. All right, now under normal circumstances, what's going to go on is when this node here, our victim, wants to connect out to an internet-based resource, he's going to make a quick determination that the IP address that he wants to connect to is not on the local subnet. So what he's going to do instead is do the ARP request to the default gateway and get its MAC address. That's my broadcast illustration there. And then that node will respond back with its MAC address. So it's typically a request and a corresponding response. Now, it's a broadcast, so it will be heard by all nodes on the network. That's part of the necessity of using a broadcast. Every node needs to be able to hear it, be able to respond to it. So once he gets that MAC address for the router, which is where he needs to send his frame to be forwarded onto the internet, then he's going to cache that in his local ARP cache for, in Windows systems, a period of 2 minutes. Cisco and Unix environments, it's a period of 5 minutes. So what we can do, instead of waiting for the request to go out, the attacker can send a directed ARP response to both nodes that he wants to intercept the traffic to. So what he's going to basically do is tell our victim here, hey, you know what? I am .1, and my MAC address is MAC 2. Okay, that's wrong, but he's still going to accept it because that's just the way it goes, unless we're actually using software to protect the ARP cache against poisoning, using like a host-based intrusion detection, or we're using some sort of mechanism on the switch. Newer Cisco switches have what's called dynamic ARP inspection that can actually squash this sort of stuff. But under normal circumstances, he's going to accept that response even though he didn't ask for it. We're going to do the same thing to the router. Okay, the router maintains a cache as well. And we're going to tell him, hey, I am MAC .3, and my MAC address is MAC 2, which is wrong. But he doesn't know that. He accepts it. So now, when this guy goes to communicate out to the internet, he's going to send his packet to the default gateway, but lo and behold, he doesn't have to ARP to it because he's already got the information in his cache. So typically, if we got something cached, we'll use that even if it's incorrect. And then the idea is that periodically that cache times out, and we rebroadcast and we refresh that in case nothing's changed. But as long as we keep this guy poisoned, and Kane will do it in 30-second intervals, as long as we keep this guy poisoned, he's never going to broadcast with a legitimate address. So what he's going to do is send his packet to the switch addressed to MAC 2, which is me, and the switch is just going to do its job. It's going to send me the packet, and then I'm going to look at it. These are eyeballs inspecting the traffic, and then I'm going to forward it out to the internet. And when the response packet comes back from the internet resource, the router is going to need to send it to the recipient, .3. He's already got that information in his cache, just like the first side of the connection. MAC 2, he addresses the frame to MAC 2, switch does its job, sends it to me, and then an IP forwarding function on the node that's running the ARP poisoning will just continue to route the packets to and fro. All right, now that will intercept all traffic destined for those nodes, and you can definitely run this thing wide open. It's not recommended because your system is not a router. It will definitely slow things down if you try to spoof the MAC address of all nodes on the network. So typically it's a more directed sort of attack. And then you can also take it a few steps further and even set up like SSL tunnel bridging, all right, where you can actually spoof the certificate. This is a tunnel, by the way. Spoof the certificate of a given web resource, and typically there is something wrong with it. There'll be an error message that pops up here, but generally most people accept certificate errors, and now you've got a bogus SSL tunnel here and a legitimate tunnel out to the resource, and then you can intercept SSL-based passwords and SSL communications. So that is a diagram of how it's going to work, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the website for www.oxidit. Whoops, sorry about that. Drop that down a little bit, start a new interface. Okay, this is a free tool. It's been out for quite a while now. and it is updated pretty frequently, and it's one of my favorite tools, even though it looks a little bit tired. It's been around for years, but it's still extremely viable. www.oxid.it, and that takes us out to the Oxid IT website, but the Kane project. Under project, we have Kane and its companion, sidekick, if you will, Able, which is a little module that can be installed on remote systems to dump their password files and things like that. So if you click on this guy, you can download Kane and Able version 4.9.43 for Windows NT 2000. They also have an old version for 9X, but I don't think we're going to run into a lot of 9X out there. And then you just download it, and it's like a 13 meg download, and away you go. Now, AV will flip out about this. Kane gets picked up as a hacking tool, so end users, you know, if you're running a managed antivirus solution, it's typically going to get flagged as being malicious software. But a hacker is not necessarily going to be an end user. They plug in one of your switch ports, and boom, they fire up the tool, and away they go. So I've already got Kane installed. So we're going to run through the interface here. And I'm going to show you a couple things on my victim system at the same time. So I'm going to do a start run CMD, and we're actually going to see the ARP cache get poisoned. I'm going to do a send, receive, and Outlook. I'll do a connection to an SMB share, and we'll intercept a couple passwords here. But if I do an ARP-A, here right now, he's got the gateway mapped to be 0B. All right, we're going to change that once we fire up ARP poisoning. That is going to change from the current MAC address to my MAC address on the ARP spoofing machine. So I'm going to fire up Kane, and here it is. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the configuration options. Okay, under configure, under ARP poison routing, you have the options to use real IP and MAC addresses, which that's typically what I stick with. You can also use spoofed IP and MAC addresses if you like. And then you have the pre-poison ARP cache option here. Create ARP entries, which we want to do. And then you also got the interval for poisoning the ARP cache. Now, one detection method is looking for unsolicited ARP responses. So that's one way we can see that this is happening on the network. But Kane has an option to actually throw out a bogus broadcast request and then the corresponding response. So it looks legit. But I'm just going to actually just use ARP reply packets here. And then you've got a couple other options here just for the sniffer configuration and so forth, and that's already set to the correct interface. Certificates collector, specific settings for certificate spoofing, etc., which Kane doesn't do a fantastic job of anymore. It might be operator error on my part, but I've not been able to get a. I use other options to actually sniff SSL passwords and things like that, just generally like burp proxy or something along those lines. So that's the initial configuration, and we're just going to go step by step on how to get this done. First thing I'm going to do is actually fire up the sniffer. All right, and then if I fire up the sniffer, now it's running and all that good stuff. The little radioactive symbol starts or stops the ARP poison routing, but we're not really ready to go there yet. We need to actually go to the sniffer tab, the APR ARP poison routing tab at the bottom of the page, and then we've got actually a couple legacy certificates here. I'm going to remove this guy. Thought I'd cleaned all this up before we went live. But under APR, we've got 0 to start with. So the first thing we want to do is actually add host to the interface. So we're going to go to the host list. We're going to hit the plus button. And what this does is it's a network sweep, but it's among the stealthier network sweeps. In general, if you run a network discovery sweep using ping requests, TCP pinging, etc., IDS will generally pick up on that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying that the ARP sweep won't be detected, but it's less likely to. So between, in the stealthier, more evasive types of things that IDS may be more likely to miss, an ARP sweep and DNS list scanning are two ways to discover the network that generally have a good chance of going undetected. So I'm going to run a sweep of all hosts my subnet. Now, one thing Kane also does is runs a promiscuous mode scanner, which you can actually scan for nodes listening in promiscuous mode, which means they're intercepting all packets that traverse the interface, not just packets destined for their own, which we are definitely doing. But I'm going to hold off on that at this point. We're looking at ARP spoofing now. There's a lot to the Kane utility. I'll show you a couple things as we go along here, but it's got a lot going on. So I'm going to sweep all hosts of my subnet. Okay, so what I've got now is I've got a list of hosts on the network, and now I've got everything I need to set up your ARP poison routing. So I'm going to be attacking this victim here, 1.143, and also the router. So I'm going to go to my APR tab, click in the white space here, hit plus, and then we're going to select 1.1, the router, APR allows me to hijack IP traffic between the single host in the left list and all hosts in the right list, which again, the guy we're after here is 143. So I'm going to add 1.1 and 143, and there it is right at the top of the list. So it was the wired connection. All right, so we're good to go. I'm going to hit ARP poisoning here, and we're going to watch what happens. I'm going to change this guy magically. That 0B is going to be something else as soon as I turn this on. So I'm going to hit ARP poison routing, okay? And we're poisoning and half routing right now. All right, so we are definitely definitely in progress. I go to the victim system, I run the ARP-A again, and now 1.1 is A9, not 0B anymore. So we're in business. All right, so we're sniffing this guy's packets. I look precarious there for a second. So I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to do a send, receive, and outlook, which is just a, and I'm going to send an email. We're going to grab a couple POP passwords, SMTP. So I'm going to create a new email, send it to myself. And I'm also going to fire up Wireshark here at the same time, and Wireshark will allow me to capture off of my poisoning interface. So I'm going to grab this email. We'll strip that out too while we're at it, just to make up for the brief lapse of connectivity there. All right, so capturing we will go. All right, all good. And now I'm just going to send this guy. I'm going to do a send, receive, and outlook. And now Kane has got some passwords for me. It will clean. I call it cleaning your fish, because Kane is a sniffer, and it's going to do everything that Wireshark can do, but it's also going to strip out the pertinent data for me, which I got to go digging a little bit more Wireshark. So I just grabbed the username and password, which is clear text under POP. We also grabbed the username and password for SMTP. I've also got some SMB exchanges here. So any clear text password is mine right now for immediate use. Any challenge handshake responses, I can then actually just send to the cracker. So if I send it to the cracker, then I go to the cracker tab, and I can actually run dictionary brute force, hybrid attacks, and so forth against it. All right, under Wireshark, since Wireshark was sniffing the entire packets, I can actually strip out the outbound email as well. So I'm going to stop that. I'm going to do a quick protocol filtering for SMTP, and then I'm just going to do a follow TCP stream, and then there's my actual dialogue. So I've got the authentication successful. There's my test email that I just sent. So I used a doubling up of tools on that. All right, so Kane will also, when you shut this guy down, we've witnessed the passwords being grabbed at this point. It'll grab anything you see in the list here. So MySQL hashes, a variety of MD2, 4s, and 5 hashes, SHA hashes, etc. They're all there, including WPA, pre-shared key handshakes, and things like that. That's a wireless discussion, and that's, I guess, a discussion for another day here. But anything it sees that fits this criteria, he'll intercept. He'll also intercept VoIP communications. And one thing I found out with Google Voice, there's no encryption on it. So under the sniffer, under VoIP, I've actually got some captured conversations here that were just tests that we did. One was I was ordering from GoToWaiter after doing a class one night, and Kane was still running, and noticed that we just grabbed it right away off the wire. So this actually just plays it back in a media player. Pretty sweet. All right, so that's the Kane utility. That's one aspect of the Kane utility. And then we've got how do we shut this thing down? How do we stop ARP poisoning attacks from happening? Well, we got a couple recommendations on that. I'm going to go back to the slides here. And then ARP poisoning can lead to denial of service attacks, data interception, VoIP call tapping, stealing passwords, and manipulating data. And then there's Kane Enable, which we use to do ARP poisoning, WinARP Attacker, UFASoft Sniff. How to defend against ARP poisoning, you can actually use dynamic ARP inspection on a newer Cisco or Juniper switch. And it just detects the ARP requests themselves, shuts them down. You can also use a variety of older utilities, ARP Watch, DSNIF, anti-sniff, and so forth, that actually watch the unsolicited pairings. And of course, IDS can pick that sort of stuff up too. So this generally works on most networks, and you can get started doing it without any hitches in the enumeration piece. You can get started doing this in about 5 minutes. So that's our discussion of ARP poisoning, our discussion of network sniffing, and we saw Wireshark sort of doubled up to strip some things out. And we talked a little bit about the countermeasuring for that, which is going to be IDS, switch configuration, or using third-party utilities that actually watch for this, and then some host-based intrusion detection products will also protect the ARP cache from unsolicited entries.
Eric, so can you, from having delivered the class, many times, as you said. Can you give us an overview of who exactly the Certified Ethical Hacker class has been designed for?
Yeah, the Certified Ethical Hacker class, EC Council is taking a pretty holistic approach to it. We actually run through, let me just show you the intro module here real fast. All right, so we've got Introduction to Ethical Hacking, Footprint and Reconnaissance, Scanning Networks, Enumeration, System Hacking, Trojans and Backdoors, Viruses and Worms, Sniffers, Social Engineering, Denial of Service, Session Hijacking, Hacking Web Servers, Hacking Web Applications, SQL Injection, Hacking Wireless Networks, one of my favorite things to do, Evasion of IDS firewalls and honeypots, Buffer Overflows, Cryptography, and then Pen Testing, which is a discussion of the pen testing process. So it's a very holistic approach to the course, and every one of these subject matter, you can drill down to the bottom of the well, so to speak, and there definitely are some specialized courses that deal only with like web application hacking that could even be 5 days long. So it benefits everybody that is entry-level to mid-level IT, I think are the background qualifications for it, as well as more advanced security practitioners. I've found that a lot of people coming to the course are very well-versed in one aspect of what they deal with day-to-day, and they don't know about the other areas. So it really is a one-size-fits-all, but there are some more concentrated courses you might find in some subject matters. So it drills down to a good depth, but it's also very broad. So I think it benefits anybody that has had that has any sort of a security responsibility, system security administrators, level 2 techs, and so forth. And also, really everybody stands to gain from taking the course, just so they're aware of what types of attacks can actually take place out there. So it's a great one-size-fits-all. But I would say, for the most part, the student demographic is going to be people that have got 3 to 5 years of IT experience at least, so they understand the TCP/IP protocol, and that's really some of the only requirements for it. We sort of take it from there.
Okay, what kind of challenges are you hearing? I mean, what problems do you, or challenges in the workplace do you find your students have had that's led them to take the Certified Ethical Hacker course?
Generally, it's a notable intrusion that's occurred recently, and they've gotten the budget dollars allocated for taking the course. But the intrusions can be anywhere from web application intrusions to attacks using viruses and malware. So generally, it's some sort of a driving factor. One that they've had recently. One thing I've seen a lot of lately too is, since CEH is on the 8570 schedule, a lot of military Department of Defense workers are coming to satisfy their DoD 8570 requirements for it. So really, the gamut of any possible intrusions within all those subjects is what drives people to the course. And generally, it's more reactive than proactive, but I'm seeing a lot more proactive coming.
Okay, absolutely. I'm sure that'll be the case going forward. So, it's kind of a similar question to the one I posed before, but how do you find, what kind of feedback do you get from students after they've taken the class? How has the material helped them perform in the workplace? Can you share your sense of that?
Yeah, I actually had a student not too long ago send me an email that he was like, hey, we actually put the skills immediately to use, and they caught there was actually there was a lot going on here, but they actually were they configured the dynamic ARP inspection on the routers or the switches and so forth, and had noticed that an employee had connected their own laptop to a switch port and was intercepting a bunch of traffic and doing what we just showed, ARP poisoning on the network, and had the thing actually under his desk on top of his tower, so nobody would see it actually plugged in. Also, a variety of web application attacks, people tightening defenses on their web applications. I had a guy recently who's somewhere up there in the DoD. He's in charge of securing the web applications, and he actually was following up in the course with some clarification questions for a couple weeks after the course, and said that it really contributed to strengthening the web applications. So, good feedback on that.
Terrific. Eric, you are an absolute pro. You kept calm and you kept walking in with our little blip, which just goes to show what an absolute superstar you are. And I really want to say thank you very much for sharing this terrific presentation. It was very, very useful. Lots of good content, and I'm sure I speak for everyone out there. It was very much appreciated. So want to say thanks. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Eric, and we will be in touch, my friend.
You too, Max.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye, everybody. Sorry for the minor hitch. Glad we got it done.
Thanks, Eric. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.